Welcome to ACCI's podcast, a space where we discuss how a movement of Australian Christians is working to transform communities and nations one life at a time.
Hi everybody, John Hunt here from Australian Christian Churches International Missions and Relief. I'm the director here and I'm so glad that you're there, joining us on this edition of our One Life at a Time podcast. Now, our special guest today is Pastor Ashley Good from the Sunshine Coast, who along with his wife Alison pioneered the church there over 3 decades ago. Welcome, Ashley. So good to have you with us.
Great to be here, John. Thank you for inviting us to jump on this platform with you.
Great, thank you. Would you give us a little bit of a background, I guess, as to how you and Alison came to start this church from scratch all those years ago?
Well, I worked around the country pioneering churches with different people, always knowing that eventually that I would pioneer a church. I thought at first it was going to be on the Gold Coast, but we spent about 3 years praying into that and felt a distinct no from God and got a little bit upset with God, to be honest, and said to my wife, come on, we're going up the Sunshine Coast just to have a day off, to be honest. From the Sunshine Coast, I was a little confused. And as I was driving through the Sunshine Coast, I felt God say to us, this is where you'll come. And so had a clear and very distinct word. Still didn't happen for about 3 years after that, but prayed into it for all those years. And eventually, when the time was right, we felt the release of the Lord, went to the district executive and said, look, this is what we're planning, but we want you guys to approve of that. And the district executive at the time rose up and called us blessed and laid hands on us, and away we went.
Here you are. How long ago was that now?
I mean, that was 1989, so it's
34 years.
I try not to think of the years.
Well, I'm in awe of it, to be honest with you, because I think it's just so incredible that you've started something and you've seen it right the way through. Ashley, what was in your heart? Like, I appreciate it's one thing to plant a church. There's a lot of churches. Do we need another church? What did you want this church that you and your wife are going to, in a sense, sow your life into to be remembered for? What did you want its, I guess, clear distinctives, clear message to be, say, 50, 60 years later?
Well, we really had a vision to touch the Sunshine Coast, and from the beginning, from the get-go, it really was our desire to build an influential church, a church that would not just minister to Christians, but have a real outreach arm. So I guess that going thing was, going to all the world, a base on the Sunshine Coast that could really influence and touch the Sunshine Coast. We've always used this word, a lighthouse church. A church that would be seen and influential and make a significant difference here, to help in our nation anywhere we could, and ultimately, from those beginning stages, we had a true passion to touch the world, to make a difference wherever we could in the world.
Yeah. I mean, clearly that church has, and it emanates from your heart, obviously, a passion for global mission. Is this something that you've carried with you all your life? Is it where is this passion for global mission come from, and why is it so prevalent in your heart, do you think?
To be honest with you, I was right from the beginning. Starting a church, pioneering a church was extremely difficult. Like there was it was just go, and probably the missions, even though the intention originally was Jerusalem, Judea, the uttermost parts of the earth, that Jerusalem part was pretty labour intensive for us, and so took up a lot of our time and a lot of our attention. And some of the young converts, the people that came in right in the beginning, became a strong part of our team, and they actually still are to this day. And I remember them basically bailing us up and saying, you're not being true to this vision to be to touch the world, and we know it's in your heart, and so we're actually going to do all the work. We're going to pay for it all, and we're heading overseas together. And I was actually in Thailand. We were with Tom Rawls, who was doing a fantastic work in Thailand at the time, and I was standing on a hill overlooking a city called of Pattaya, and listening to the nightclubs and something I think got into me.
Right.
Standing on that hill, looking over that city of Pattaya, that probably has never left.
Right. Interesting.
Well, no, definitely has never left. And so
Yeah.
it was actually there was a moment standing on top of that hill where I just felt whether it's the heart of Christ, whether it's the need, whether it's the commission, something. I genuinely have had an encounter with God where I thought we've got to do this. We've got to
Wow.
make certain that our church is always on the forefront, on the front leg of mission.
Great. Powerful. Well, was there a time, because I think we'd recognize that the forces of this world don't want us to be focused on the Great Commission. If they can get us to focus on ourselves and be consumed by our problems, those forces will do that. Was there a moment for you when you had to choose between, I guess, generosity and pragmatism? This is calling me down. I've got these responsibilities, these requirements, but this is my vision and this is in my heart. And was there a moment, I guess, when you said, no, I'm going to go for the vision over these pressing requirements in front of me right now?
Yeah. Look, probably the moment was that moment on top of that hill in Pattaya, but practically, when you're dealing with the realities of staffing and money and evangelism and seating and just the many things that the local church takes up. There was probably a defining moment when when Pastor James Sluzner got a call in his heart to go to Brisbane, and did that brilliantly, did it with a great deal of integrity. We knew just right up front that we had to actually put our money where our mouth is and support that vision, because he is now going. And so we just thought, he's given so much to us, and it's now our turn to give back. And so we started this journey of funding a year with James on site, and then a year when he established his church on the ground floor. So kind of 2 years, a year where he was still our youth pastor, but his intention was where he was going, Brisbane, and then a year on the ground floor. And one of the financiers in the church came to me probably partway through that first year and said, "Are we done with this yet?" And I said, "No, we are not done with this yet." And look, that person, the realities, staffing needs at home. And I said, "No, we're not done with this. It's not done until the final check is paid." And that, I think, was a concreting moment. Something was really forged in my heart that we would not relent. We would not take a backward step when it came to finance and giving. God really put a revelation in my heart that giving's not giving until you give it away. Because sometimes we give to things that we have direct influence in, and sometimes it's sort of giving to ourselves. But when James was leaving our congregation, there was no influence. It wasn't going to be an annex church. This was his dream, his vision. So there was a moment, I think, where I learnt that giving's not giving until you actually give it away. And so I think that was a defining moment. And there've been a few others where a ministry that we're still heavily involved in. That's probably producing about 6,000 meals a week. They've got a huge factory in a particular place. No need to focus on who that is or where that is. They rang me to talk to me about the inception of this vision and everything that was in their heart. It was very exciting. One of those times where it's all very exciting. And, we're high-fiving each other and saying, "Man, we're so excited for you guys, and we'll be praying for you." And the phone call ended, and I was walking away. And I felt God say to me, "Great, like, good to high five the guy, cheer him on, but I want you to give him $10,000. And I thought, "What?" He said, "I want you to give him $10,000. And so I went to the financier of our church, and I said, "Look, have we got $10,000? And they said, "Look, there's no, but I can scrape it up if you need it." And I said, "Yeah, we do." And we sent that guy $10,000. And of course, a miracle, that was the exact number that he needed. He didn't tell us that. And that started a miraculous sort of loaves and fishes scenario. They were able to purchase stuff, fridges and equipment that they couldn't. And that, like I said, that ministry is now giving away, 6,000 meals per week.
Mm.
It's an incredible ministry. So along the way, you have to take those steps forward into a place of actual practicalities, and put your money where your mouth is, and so we've continued to just lean into those moments where
Yeah.
we can say, hey, this is fantastic, but how are we gonna contribute to this?
Well, that's interesting. And you made the comment then, put your money where your mouth is, and that's clearly not always as easy as it sounds, but I would have thought even more difficult than that was giving away your own people. You mentioned, James left, and then you said, well, we're going to sow into that. Um, Sometimes I've heard it said, it's difficult to leave a church because, you belong here, you're ours. We don't want to let you go. And there's something quite significant when you can release your best into God's kingdom. Could you speak into that space? That might help a few people because I know it's a struggle. We're all, most pastors, struggle for resources, but probably more so, struggle for the right people, and leave alone letting go of the people who you have learned to rely on. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, look, it was James had put an incredible season in for us, and he was all over the shop. He was an incredible asset, and the time just comes where you knew both, seemed good to us and the Holy Spirit, and so you just know, and so there's a sense that okay, we're gonna lean into this, we're gonna release that, but it comes also from vision that we've always had a desire to. Um, give, and it's not just money, it's resources, it's people, so we started an internship a couple of years back, which is going really, really well, and always our desire is to sow into the country. And so in our first intact, we had Mr. Barton, a young man who had a call of God, clearly a call of God in his life, amazing communicator, really good guy, and there wasn't a job here for him. And I was talking to Zoran Ponovich, who'd just had his youth pastor leave, and we were just chatting about what to do next. And I was saying to him, mate, look, in my space, it's always don't look here, look there. So who's the next youth pastor? Would be my suggestion. And then instantly, I said to him, you know what? I think I've got the answer. And a miraculous set of circumstances ensued, where the Youth Alive director in Victoria was involved, saying, oh my goodness, I prophesied over that young man, Matthew Barton. I prophesied over Matthew when he was a young man, 15, at the missions conference in Thailand. He said, I called him aside, said that you're going to be a youth pastor, and he said, mate, if you can get Matt Barton, grab him with both hands. And so Zoran rang us back very excited, and we were able to install Matthew into that situation, and he's doing very, very well. And we've got a heart to continue doing that wherever we can. And when it's never easy,
Mm.
but I think it comes from when we sowed James, and probably not just sowed him into Brisbane because that's kind of a loss, but we said, okay, we're going to actually provide the wage. God has gone on to bless us beyond our wildest expectation or imagination, and those two things were kind of around the same season, a little later than that, but the season sort of. And I remember thinking to myself, I think these two things are connected in some way.
Right. Interesting. Right.
And it wasn't just James or him going to Brisbane or us sowing someone else. That those two things were connected. First the sowing of resource, the sowing of people, and the flow-on effect that we have been blessed beyond our wildest imagination as a result. And so I remember saying to myself, man, if I'd have known how powerful those two things are, I'd have been sowing a lot harder, a lot sooner.
That's so interesting. So for you, given it shall be given isn't just a catchphrase. It's an actual experience.
Yeah, it actually is. And I guess that thing of, giving's not giving till you give it away, so that it's things not connected to you that you don't
Right,
necessarily benefit from. And I
right,
think that that's the revelation, that if you
right.
can give it to, and so we do it, we sponsor people to come to conference, wherever we can give a particular international ministry that we know pretty well.
Mhm.
During COVID was doing it tough because this whole, business model went down. Um, just chatting with them again, I said, "Hey, look, can I sell into this a significant amount of money to get you through COVID?"
Mm,
And that was just probably the difference between him staying head above water and not.
interesting,
And so,
interesting.
wherever we can find an opportunity in a moment to do that in small ways and large ways, it's just become part of the culture,
Mm.
of the life of the church. If you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah, I think it's powerful, my friend, and I think one of the keys from what I can see observing you and Allison and Life Church is your capacity to have kept this up for not just a few years but for decades. Your passion for missions that has gone on not just year after year but decade after decade. What's the key to maintaining that fresh passion over the long haul? You've been doing it a few years now, mate.
Look, I think it's, not doing the same thing, over and over again. It's that it's having that moment where you reinvent the vision, where you get, it's almost like you go back to that beginning place where you heard from heaven. And in each season there is a different word that will come, there is a different emphasis that will flow. And so whether it's, climbing the mountain, and really praying that through, or spending time with team, really hashing that through. In each season, whether that be a 5-year season or a 7-year season or a 3-year season or a 1-year season, which we all do, that vision for the year, we really wait on God for that, and that reinventation of who you are and how you do things, doing it better, doing it smarter, doing it, and it's amazing how God will cooperate and drop that fresh oil into the mix to, to put petrol in the tank, to put, fire in the belly. And so I don't know that I would have been able to make it, except for the reinventation in each season.
Right. In terms of reinventing yourself, I mean, you've made that observation. You've got to reinvent yourself. You've been in that church for several decades. Could you give us some glimpse into, reinventing yourself, how you went about that, the pitfalls?
Yeah, look, I think that one of the greatest pitfalls people make is that, we've got this central leader, and look, it's very, very powerful. We've seen an incredible model where one particular person, lifts up the banner, and everything flows from that point. But in answer to your question, for me, we had Rick Emerson come into the mix, who's an incredible leader, a great communicator, just an all-round, brilliant guy. And we knew that in that next season, if you want to continue the journey with a guy like Rick Emerson, who could probably, run a bunch of churches in the nation, you have to actually make a laneway for them to be fulfilling everything that's in their heart. And
Yeah.
so there came a time where I knew that my job was to to give to give Ricky the absolute best pathway forward. And so what we did was, I went to Ricky and I said, look, I want, even though we didn't have annex churches yet, we will have in the future, I believe. But I went to Ricky with, one good significant church, and I said, I'm at the helm of this church. God's called me and will continue to call me for years to come. But I honestly believe that you are a lead pastor. You're not an associate, and I want to install you into that position. And so, and looking back, since we did that, probably the energies that I have, shift and change over the years. And I really needed a forerunner, a front runner, and Ricky has really become that. And the relationship that Ricky and I have is a unique relationship. We spend a lot of time together comparing notes, making sure we're, running this race as one. And, I have a son that works in the team, who's an amazing young man. And I didn't want to be I want to be a dad to him, and so Ricky becomes the oversight for him, so that he can achieve his. Because well, I see him, I want to talk about the grandkids, and so Ricky takes on that responsibility to pastor and to cheer on my son,
Right.
and so that's
You
one
literally
example.
changed your profile. You literally changed your role.
Yeah, yeah. So we retained the name senior pastor only because we didn't believe people would understand what we were trying to do. I remember in talking to someone, I said to them, I was explaining this, and they stepped back at me and says, "Yeah, but who has the final say?" And I said to this person, I said, "Look, in your marriage, biblically, who has the final say?" And they said, "That'd be me." And I said, "Great, you've answered correctly. Can I ask you another question? Have you ever had to use that power in your marriage?" And they said, not in my marriage, mate." And I said,
In the game.
"Congratulations, neither have I, and neither should I." I
Yeah.
said, "And this is kind of like that."
Right.
And this person
Interesting.
said to me, "Mate, that's brilliant."
Mhm.
And so it really is, whether it's a big brother, younger brother relationship, or whether it's a father in the faith and a son in the faith. I can truly say that we have developed and worked out all the little nuances and mechanisms for that relationship to work really, really well.
Right.
So that's an example of how we've shifted
Yeah.
and changed gears, if you like.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that has caused our church to continue to grow
Mm.
to the point where, Ricky is at the helm of our congregation, and my job is to build the sanctuary and to look down the road a bit, to be heavily involved in vision, and creating culture, etc. So that's kind of my role, and Ricky really is the senior leader of the congregation.
Yeah, great.
And
That's
there's been a number of other things like that we've
yeah.
done over the years to keep the thing fresh and to keep it,
Oh,
on the cutting edge.
excellent. Thanks. Appreciate that. Ashley, look, thank you so much for your time today. I did want to ask you just before we finish our podcast, any advice that you would have if I was a pastor, say, listening to this and thinking, I need to get involved in the Great Commission. I'm doing what I can in Jerusalem and Judea, Samaria, but the uttermost parts, is clearly a mandate. Go on the wall to world, make disciples, the boss said. What would your advice be to somebody sort of getting started, wanting to think, okay, how do I take this to the next level?
Look, probably when we were at that point where I'm going, okay, when someone looked at me and says, "Hey, you talk missions, but I don't think you have a vision, and so relax, we're going to make it all happen. We're going to pay for it. You're going overseas. That's it." And when I got that original vision, I probably got to a place where I still didn't know how that was to work. Like, okay, Tom was there. He was a great mate. It was an easy trip. We had a fantastic time. But you come back and you say, okay, how do I make this work? How do I put legs and feet on the ground? And this is only a personal thing. I'm not sure this is, so if my experience is any help, God really spoke to me about getting behind apostolic ministries, people that would really change a nation and would get really intense about developing disciples. And so even ministries that we've collected over the years, I ask them that question, where are your disciples? Like, are you building churches? And so, over the years, we've supported people like, Doug Boyle, who's literally started a movement in, a very, very difficult part of the world. Tom Rawls, who did a fantastic job in Thailand, literally from one end of the country to the other, and into Bangladesh from Thailand, and left behind a bunch of disciples.
Yeah,
So our key word was to make certain that we were supporting people that would be apostolic, And then we would support people who would be support agents for those people. So if you're coming to us saying, hey, will you support this couple? We'd have to say, okay, maybe yes, but we're wanting to know who is the significant apostolic mover and shaker, the driving force behind that. Will there be an asset that's left, in people and in churches and and resource for that country on the ground floor? And that became probably the true north, and probably still is
Right.
to this day. That's probably the best advice I can give is look at getting behind people who can really change a nation, and leave disciples. And then if you support other people who are sort of support to them, make sure that connection and that relationship is. And again, that's the other word, is relationship. Can you have a relationship? Over the years, we travelled the world making certain that those relationships were strong, and even sewed in to areas like Kazakhstan. Doug and Adam Boyle are over there again at the moment. And so built a relationship with their people, helped in preaching and prophetic, and so relationship would probably be the apostolic number one, and making certain you have a vital relationship with those people.
Excellent. Thank you, Ashley. That's great. Appreciate you sharing your wisdom that has been wrought through many, many years of experience. And again, on behalf of ACCI, to Life Church, to you and Alison, we love and respect you guys because you've been so true to your vision for so long, and it's admirable. And so thank you so much, Ashley. Thank you for sharing with us today. Thank you to those who are listening to us. I trust that this has been inspirational and informative as we continue to change this great world of ours, one life at a time. God bless you, and trust us to catch up with you on our next podcast.
Can I just say to you, thank you for stepping up and being that next season of missions. It's wonderful what you do. I don't think people realise the enormity of this job that you have, and we just thank you for the work that you do. We as a church pray for you regularly because those people that are on the ground floor need an amazing covering, and you've stepped into that role, and you're doing it admirably. And so we thank God for you as well. We look to you for the future. Bless you, mate.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of One Life at a Time. To play a part in making a difference, or to find out more about ACCI's impact across the globe, visit acci.org.au.